Hi, I'm here at my kitchen table. I'm going to try to do a video version of my first craft project that I always do in my morning studio classes, which is to have each one of you make a pair of timpani sticks that gives the right sound for classical era repertoire, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven. They're pretty easy to make, really. The ideas that we get from making these can be applied in a lot of different ways. We do a lot of classical timpani repertoire at Kinhaven. Everybody gets a part of Haydn, Mozart, or Beethoven every year. And the sticks that almost everyone brings are too big and fluffy for the style. They're good for the later repertoire that you play in youth symphonies and wind ensembles, the romantic and the modern repertoire, but it's too big and fluffy for Haydn and Mozart. So you can buy sticks that will do this. One of the standards is Saul Goodman, number 5. They're green. This pair has actually been recovered, so I use slightly darker green felt when I recovered them. And there are others. So if arts and crafts you just don't take to it, you could pretty much cover this base just with a pair of Goodman greens, number 5. So the tools that I'm going to use on this, I have my multi-tool. I think I'm just going to use one of the knives in this. I actually got this one at their hardware store in Londonderry. This is actually one of my favorite ones. I think I have one that I leave at camp. And then just a pair of scissors. There are 3 parts to any mallet: the handle, the core, and the covering. And so we're going to make the handles to these mallets out of dowel that you can get at practically any hardware store, large or small, the big boxes or the small mom and pop ones. I get the dowels that I use in the classes at Kinhaven, usually at the hardware store in Londonderry, about 5 miles away. This one I'm pretty sure that I got at a craft store, like a Michael's. There's a Michael's craft store in Rutland that I go to for stuff. And timpani stick handles are normally anywhere from 3/8 in diameter to here's a 3/8 inch. Here's a 3/8 inch handle that's been cut, and this is a 5/8 inch dowel, and so normally the smart thing to do is just sort of start in the middle, start with 1/2 inch dowels, and that's what's going to feel most natural to most of you anyhow. And then they're anywhere from 13 inches long to 16 inches long. They're commercial timpani sticks, Cloyd Duff sticks, the wooden handle Cloyd Duff sticks, and the imitators like the JG sticks they're imitators of the Cloyd Duff sticks. The wooden handle sticks are 13 inches long. There are also commercial sticks, the hanger sticks, the metal hanger sticks, that are 16 inches long, and anything in between. Goodmans and Firths that a lot of people start with tend to be around 14 and a half. And so normally when I have you make sticks at Kinhaven, I cut the handles for you during the class, and I normally use 1/2 inch dowel, and I cut them 15 inches long. For myself, I make some longer, some shorter, depending on the situation. I'm going to cut this one up in a minute. I'm going to make the core out of masking tape, and you have a lot of options on cores, but I'm just going to focus on masking tape. This is 1/2 inch width masking tape, which is a little tricky to find anymore in the hardware stores. They used to have it in the store, in the Ace Hardware in Londonderry, but they haven't in recent years. So I've just been ordering it online. I just search 1/2 inch masking tape. And, you know, it's, I think 5 rolls for $10 or something like that. At Kinhaven, I always have enough there that you have it to use. The tape that you can get in stores is normally about 3/4 of an inch. And so it's possible to make some with that. It's possible to cut it down. Once we get past this, there are a lot of options, okay? So that's going to be the core. The covering is going to actually be in 2 layers. And the under layer is going to be the adhesive felt, thin craft felt, with an adhesive backing on it. I actually have some scraps of it stuck on the underside. And I got this at a craft store. I probably got this piece at that Michael's in Rutland, but there's a Michael's a mile or 2 from me here that I go get it at as well. Different colors. I think the external dimensions on this one are still intact. They're normally 9 by 12. And this sheet costs a little bit over $1. They also have similar size sheets, a little bit under $1, again in a variety of colors, that don't have the adhesive backing on them, and those are what we're going to use for the outer covering. And I like to make the inner covering and the outer covering on all my sticks contrasting colors, so that when the outer covering wears out, I start seeing the color of the inner covering, and I know it's time to recover it. It doesn't wear all the way. It doesn't wear all the way through, and so I actually have. I don't have a sheet of that felt. I have green felt here. That's actually a scrap of the craft felt that I use. It's very thin, 1/16 of an inch maybe. I got this at a fabric store. And they also have the sheets at most fabric stores. There's a Joanne Fabrics in Rutland that I go to that sells it by the yard, and a quarter of a yard costs $3 or $4 or something. I probably got a couple of yards to do glue felt linings on timpani covers, and this is just the scraps in the corners. Okay, and then. I have rubber bands that I'm going to use to put the cover on, to secure the cover on with. And I'm almost certain that I got this bag of rubber bands in the grocery store, in the IGA in Londonderry. I normally go in there and get supplies. But, office supply stores, rubber bands. Okay? So, the first thing I'm going to try to do actually is cut this dowel, and this is a 5/8 inch dowel, and I've measured it 16 inches long. And the one I'm going to finish up for you here, I used 1/2 inch dowel. I think I cut those a little shorter, and I'm just going to do this quick and dirty way that I always do in the class. I don't have to have my saw and my vise. The pair of handles I'm going to make for you in a minute, I actually did clamp in a vise and cut with a small hacksaw. But you can see I put a mark here 16 inches from the end. And I'm just going to, I just got this serrated knife that's on here. I'm just going to sort of saw around it there. There it is. And it normally doesn't take a whole lot to do this. So the serrated knife in this multi-tool actually works more like a saw. So I've done this, and I may be able to get away with this even now. There it is, I broke it off, okay? And so then Here's one 16-inch handle. And these dowels are poplar, and normally, particularly in the big box stores, Home Depot and Lowe's, they have poplar dowels, and normally right around the same area they also have oak dowels. And the pair I'm going to make here, sir, are oak. The oak's a little bit more expensive. It's a little heavier. It's a little harder, so I have to use a regular saw and a vise on it. But here's this, and here's this little scrap that I'm just going to go ahead and trim off. And I'd slick this up with the file that's in here and some sandpaper and all right. So now I have my masking tape. Here it is, a little hard to get going. So here it is, and I've just put it around put it on the end here. And I'm just going to unwind it off the roll of tape and wind it back on to the end of the dowel. And this is actually surprisingly tricky to do, at least initially. It's lumpy and there's gaps in it, and it's more difficult to do in a distracted situation, like when we're hanging out in the studio class and chatting and so forth. And so normally the first time or two, like anything else in life, it's not great, but it only takes doing it 2 or 3 times to get to the point where you can. And so you can see just by doing this, I built up a bit of a right? And so here is one that I've finished that I did before. So this one isn't quite as big as this one yet. I'd have to put some more on it to get it the same size. But here's it can be a little bit smaller than this and be okay. I've actually measured this one out with the ruler that's in here to be 7/8. Let me find it. It's right there. There's a ruler on here, and I've actually measured this one out to be 7/8 of an inch across in diameter. And it can work, particularly for this kind of stick, this sort of small, hardish stick. It can work as small as 3/4. Okay, so now there's a corner here, and it can actually even through the covering, it can actually put dents in timpani heads. And so I normally, what I do is I take this same small the serrated knife, and I just trim that top corner off. And here, and of course at Kinhaven I've got a lot of times I do this for you guys at Kinhaven. I tell you that when you make them on your own, you have to do this, but I do this step because, here I am about to put a knife through my thumb, and I don't know, the wisdom of having teenage boys with knives is debatable. And so now I've got my, now I have my adhesive back felt, and I'm going to cut it 1/2 inch wide and long enough to go around there, which is about 3 inches. And you can, if you're a measure it and draw it person, you measure it and draw it. I'm just going to eyeball it. Here it is, about 1/2 inch wide. I'm going to go zip. About 3 inches long. There's the strip I just cut. And so it has backing, paper backing. So I have to kind of pull it apart somehow. There it is. And so there's the backing it came off, and now there's the adhesive. And so now I'm going to put it on. I'm going to line it up with the top, actually. I'll put it on here, just wrap it around. And because I didn't measure carefully, it's a little bit too, it's a little bit too long. Okay. How can I do that? There it is. All right. So I fixed that with the scissors. And there it is. And there's the little seam. And there it is. And I think this one, I may have cut this one a little bit on the wide side as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, it's overlapping the bottom. I'm actually going to try to trim a bit off the bottom too. Okay. So there's that. Okay. So now I've got my felt here, my green felt, same thickness of felt as on here. It's just that it doesn't have the adhesive on it, right? And this handle's actually 15.5, not 15, whoop-de-doo. And this is 1/2 inch oak. So I'm gonna put it, just pull it here, just find a place where it fits. And then I'm gonna hopefully find, I made one up earlier. Hopefully this is gonna become a pair too. A pair, this is gonna match. And so this is the sort of size of rubber band I ended up with. But you see, I've got a pretty good selection. Of course, if you're into colors, you can get colors, whatever you want. And so here it is. Got it pulled over, sort of like a sock over there. And then I just put it on here and start wrapping it around. So I've got like 4 or 5 lines there, and if you look at it, there's all kinds of folds and stuff. It's still on there pretty loosely. I actually did a pretty bad job. I'm going to start over. Right. So so I'm pulling the folds out. I'm just going around and pulling as many of them out. And this is obviously something that's easier to see in person, but there I've got most of them pulled out. And so when I get to that point, I just go on ahead and finish wrapping the rubber band up, and hopefully the rubber band doesn't break. And if the rubber band does break, hopefully I have 2 rubber bands of the same size, and so on and so forth. But so there it is, right? So at this point, I just take my scissors and trim around the base. So throw this over here. So there it is. Here's the one I made earlier. This one's the one I just made. And it looks like I could do a slightly better job of trimming the bottom off of it. It's possible to trim this tighter, you know, with a utility knife or one of the sharp knives in the multi-tool. And normally what I do is I give that a few weeks like this with the rubber band. And then in a few weeks, the felt will have sort of formed to the core. And I can take the rubber band off, and then I'll wrap thread or dental floss around it and do it that way. So so here they are. So I have one of my small timps over here, and it's actually a pair. Right. So if you've been assigned a Magic Flute Overture for the first chamber orchestra rehearsal at 9 o'clock that first Monday morning, 9:30 that first Monday morning, there was a little bit of it, and I don't know if I would have been able to. I normally don't get to this project until like Tuesday or Thursday of the first week, so normally I send you with something to play it with the first rehearsal, but almost invariably the person who's playing the chamber orchestra the first week, who has a concert on Friday afternoon, they almost invariably play the concert with a pair of sticks they've made. So here are I said there are some other examples. So here's some. Here's a pair that was made in class, you know, about 10 years ago. You know, they're slightly different shade, and they're a tiny bit shorter. I think this is the lighter dowel, not the oak. And I have trimmed these tighter and replaced the rubber band with dental floss. In this case, I just wrapped it around. Okay. Here's a pair of wooden timpani sticks. These are Goodmans. It's actually a neat old pair of 1960 hickory Goodmans. Because when we use wooden sticks, there's always a quick switch in and out of wooden sticks. Not always, but most of the time. There are a lot of quick switches in the repertoire. Regular sticks, wooden, just a measure or two, or not even any time to change. And so I believe that every wooden stick needs to have a softer one installed on the back end. And so it's just a tape core, and you can see, you may not be able to see, but it is a rubber band. And you can see that this one's kind of worn through, so you can see my contrasting undercover, which means I need to redo these, which I will one of these days. Probably next time I need them, say, oh boy, got to use them. Need to redo them. Okay, so there's so the back ends of wooden timpani sticks. So of course, all kinds of quick switches. It's a way to put something softer on the back end, cymbal rolls and so forth. This is the snare drum stick, a Vic Firth, I think 5B, and it has a tape core, and it looks like that tape core is a tiny bit smaller than the one I just made, which is the green one. And I think I made it the core even a bit smaller, used a thicker undercovering. This covering is chamois, CHAMOIS, which is the animal skin that I get at auto parts stores because people use it for drying cars when they wash them. And so I just did the same thing. And this pair's also been, had the rubber band replaced by dental floss. And of course I've trimmed it very tight with a very sharp knife. So those are some options. You can we have lots of others too, and I'll show you the variations on those as we go along. So that's sort of it. Here's the first thing. It's a poor substitute for the real thing in person, but it's not unusual for someone to get through an hour class on this and have the pair of timpani sticks that I just made. So have fun. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Hasta la vista.